Karoline Leavitt had been convinced she could humiliate Jasmine Crockett on national television and stroll away untouched. She imagined applause, validation, maybe even a headline or two praising her boldness. What she didn't anticipate was the chain reaction that followed. A lawsuit backed by hard evidence, a public mood that shifted sharply, and a woman who chose strategy instead of spectacle. Jasmine did not raise her voice, did not lash out, did not even flinch. She simply moved with quiet exactness. And that stillness won. It began on what should have been a regular Wednesday morning. Emails were being drafted and reviewed across offices. Clerks were preparing filings. The conference table in Attorney Brandon Key's Dallas office was lined with deposition folders. Jasmine and Brandon sat across from each other, carefully working through testimony timelines and procedural notes. Nothing about the day suggested anything unusual was about to happen. Then the door opened. Samira, Jasmine's chief of staff, stepped inside with her phone in hand. Her expression wasn't panicked, but it held a seriousness that halted the room's rhythm. "You'll want to see this," she said quietly. Offering the phone to Jasmine, the screen displayed a forwarded message. Not an official communication. Not a PR statement. Just a screenshot. The origin was verified. The sender was unmistakable. Karoline Leavitt had written Jasmine directly. No advisors. No legal counsel. Just her. The message read, "I'm not sure if this will even reach you, but I need to try. I understand now that I crossed a line. I thought I was being courageous, but I see now that I was careless. This has cost me more than I ever imagined. I'm asking you to please withdraw the lawsuit." The message was brief, but its weight was enormous. It undercut the persona Karoline had built for months. Brandon leaned over Jasmine's shoulder to read. His jaw tightened slightly. "She's trying to shape the narrative. This isn't remorse. It's positioning." Jasmine didn't debate. She passed the phone back to Samira and spoke with calm clarity. "Don't release it. If it leaks, it won't be from us." Yet only 2 hours later, the message appeared on Twitter. An anonymous political reporter posted it, and within minutes it spread like wildfire. Commentators pounced. News cycles accelerated. Podcasts clipped it. Cable panels broke it down. The 90 or so words ignited a nationwide response. Some voices pleaded sympathy. "She's overwhelmed. Show mercy." Others held firm. "You can't humiliate someone in public and whisper apologies in private." Networks capitalized. CNN titled a panel discussion, "The Strength of Refusing to Respond." MSNBC brought in analysts to talk about silent authority. Fox News protested the leak, but could not dispute the message's authenticity. This was no longer simply a legal dispute. It had become a mirror the country was staring into. In Dallas, notification alerts poured in. Donations surged. Emails flooded Samira's inbox, divided between forgiveness and accountability. "People are expecting a statement," Samira informed her. Jasmine shook her head. "They already have it." Samira blinked. "Which statement?" "The one I didn't give. No interviews. No tweets, no reactions. Just silence, deliberate and deep." And that silence thundered louder than argument ever could. Political strategists noticed. Commentators who rarely agreed now shared common language. One veteran organizer tweeted, "This isn't silence. This is mastery." Meanwhile, Karoline's team scrambled to regain control. Her PR consultant encouraged her to issue a carefully worded apology video. Karoline refused. "They think I'm weak. I will not feed that narrative." Her voice cracked slightly. The Zoom meeting where she said that, it leaked too. A journalist posted her exact words, "I'm not begging. I'm just trying to draw boundaries." But the public had already seen her original message. They recognized pleading when they saw it. That night, Jasmine powered her phone off. She warmed leftovers, sat with the stillness of her living room, and allowed the world to interpret the moment without her guidance. Elsewhere, the debate continued. Some called Jasmine's silence grace, others called it tactical brilliance, but nearly everyone agreed the silence was effective. 3 days passed. No statement, no leaks, no commentary. On the 4th day, the Boston Globe published an op-ed headlined, "The Woman Who Said Nothing and Changed Everything." It analyzed restraint as influence. High school civics teachers assigned it as discussion material. Morning news shows dissected the psychology of patience. A pastor in Alabama delivered a sermon about steady courage in the face of provocation. Jasmine hadn't sought any of this. She continued working. Committee hearings, constituent meetings, district visits, no mention of Karoline at any point. Yet rooms changed when she entered them. People paid closer attention. At a late evening briefing, Brandon laid down a stack of newspapers in front of her. "This," he said, "is what silence built." "I didn't do it for attention," Jasmine replied. "And that," Brandon answered, "is why it resonated." Even neutral observers began shifting. A commentator once loyal to Karoline tweeted, "There's a difference between boldness and self-destruction." Jasmine showed the difference. Karoline attempted damage control with a video titled, "The Truth They're Afraid of You Knowing." Her tone defensive, her posture rigid. Comments dismantled her message in real time. "You had the microphone. She had dignity. You gambled. She didn't." Her silence had become the blade Karoline couldn't parry. In a closed meeting with her lawyer, Karoline finally broke. "I apologized. Why didn't she meet me halfway?" she asked, tears brimming. Her lawyer answered gently, "You're used to being heard." She chose not to listen. Meanwhile, Jasmine attended her neighborhood church that Sunday. Quiet seat, quiet presence. No spotlight. An elderly man approached afterward, offering only a simple acknowledgement. "Thank you for not lowering yourself." Jasmine nodded. Not everything deserves a reply. But Karoline's real downfall wasn't online. It came quietly, through an email from a wellness brand that had sponsored her podcast for over a year. "We are ending our partnership effective immediately." Then her booking agent canceled her upcoming national interview. Then her social circles quieted. At home in Portsmouth, she paced her living room, tension sinking into every step. Even her fiancé spoke to her differently. When she insisted, "I didn't do anything," he simply walked away. Meanwhile, across the country, Jasmine continued her work with unbroken consistency. A producer finally revealed internal evidence showing Karoline had asked to go off script during the original broadcast. Brandon printed and archived it. The legal stakes shifted. Jasmine remained calm. Karoline's voice, once sharp, now trembled. In desperation, she filmed one more video for her paid supporters. Hoodie on, no makeup, shaky voice. "I don't owe anyone a performance, but..." The clip leaked. Critics called it manipulation disguised as vulnerability. Supporters saw exhaustion. Everyone else saw someone cornered by her own actions. And for the first time, no one was rushing to defend her. The moment people started seeing her as unraveling rather than in control was when things truly began. Toe collapse. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when Jasmine entered Brandon's office, carrying a brown paper bag from a nearby sandwich shop. She placed it on his desk like it was just another ordinary day. The office felt unusually still for being so close to the trial date. Outside, the faint hum of traffic filled the air while inside, tension hung silently. Brandon looked up from his pile of legal notes. "You're calm," he observed. Jasmine gave a small shrug. "I've been through worse," and she had. She'd weathered smear campaigns, coded questions from donors, even threats during her first election. But this time was different. Not because it was louder, but because it finally felt clear. Samira entered the office, tablet in hand. "The New York Times wants a comment." "No," Jasmine replied instantly. "They're suggesting your silence is a campaign tactic now." "It's not strategy," Jasmine said. "It's a boundary." Samira hesitated, then nodded. "It's working," and it was. Jasmine wasn't appearing on camera, yet she was everywhere in the public conversation. Old speeches and interviews about leadership and identity were resurfacing across social media. Without speaking a word, she had become the focus. But behind the scenes, she was far from passive. "Let's review the witness list," she said. "I want to know exactly who's testifying and how solid they are." Brandon handed her a sheet. "We've got the panel producer, 2 former interns, and a campaign aide from Karoline's 2022 run. All ready to testify." "Anyone seem nervous?" Jasmine asked. "The assistant was," Brandon said. "But after hearing what Karoline said about you on that podcast," she called back. "Said she's ready." "Good." There was no pride in her tone, only focus, like someone finally assembling a puzzle that made sense. Samira glanced at her phone. A former conservative donor just wrote an op-ed saying the party should rethink what it rewards. "They won't," Jasmine said quietly. "Not until it costs them something." The room went silent. Brandon leaned back. You know what people are saying about you? What? That you're the one who doesn't flinch. Jasmine looked at him. Edo flinch. I just do it privately. And she did. At night when the call stopped and the emails quieted, sitting alone in her living room, she'd scroll through her phone only to delete comments disguised as concern. You're better than this, let it go. She erased them all because she knew what they really meant. Be quiet. Be smaller, but she'd done that before. Smiled when it hurt, held back when it cost her, softened her words to make others comfortable, and still it was never enough. So this time she said nothing and stood firm. Brandon noticed. You're showing people what boundaries look like. Oh, Jasmine corrected. I'm showing them what not folding looks like. He paused. Do you ever regret not replying to her message? No, because it wasn't for me. Jasmine said it was for the audience. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted relief. That line stayed with Brandon. He jotted it on his notepad and underlined it twice. Later that week, Jasmine visited a small community garden in Oak Cliff. A group of middle school girls waited nervously, holding handmade signs. One, no older than 12, handed her a folded note that read, "Thank you for not letting them talk to you like you don't matter." Jasmine smiled and slipped the note into her coat. What's your name? I'm Amamira, the girl said. You like tell right? The girl nodded. Then keep writing. Tell the truth. Samira stood a few steps back, quietly watching as Jasmine's calm became a symbol. Karoline was preparing one last attempt to twist the story, and by the week's end it would change everything again. Jasmine Crockett had become something no one, especially Karoline, expected. A symbol of strength and deliberate leadership. In Santa Fe, a civics teacher paused her lesson on accountability, projected Jasmine's quote. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about relief, and asked her students, what do we expect from those who cross the line? In Portland, a bookstore displayed a table labeled, Speak Truth Without Yelling. The first book was a biography of Shirley Chisholm. Beside it, a transcript of Jasmine's now viral congressional speech from 2 years prior. None of this had been planned, but that's how momentum works. Sometimes it builds itself around you. Jasmine hadn't changed her tone or message. That's why people believed her. She didn't treat it like her big break, just her responsibility. Meanwhile, Karoline resurfaced after days of silence. Appearing on a small conservative talk show filmed in Boise. Grainy footage, oversized flag. One host. The host smirked. Some say you're just saying what others are afraid to say, especially about Jasmine Crockett. The race narrative is getting old, right? Karoline laughed. Well, I wouldn't say you're wrong. 10 seconds, that's all it took. The clip spread online within hours. People weren't shocked anymore. They were tired. Tired of excuses. Tired of seeing bigotry passed off as opinion. Brandon watched the video twice, then sent it to Jasmine with no message. He didn't need one. That same day, a journalist from the Los Angeles Tribune called pulling the op-ed from Karoline's camp. We just can't support it anymore. Brandon thanked them and hung up. In Dallas, Jasmine sat at a round table with social workers. No one mentioned the lawsuit, just the work ahead. Afterward, an older woman approached her, silver in her braids and tired eyes. She held out her phone showing the Boise clip. She said this last night, the woman said. And I thought about my daughter, how she's watching this happen again, just like I did. Jasmine glanced at the screen. I know, she said softly. But she's not our focus. Then what is? The woman asked, making sure we don't. Jasmine sat quietly in her car for a while before finally starting the engine. Her phone buzzed again. Another message asking for a comment, but she flipped it over face down and drove off. The real fallout, however, was only beginning. Within a day, 2 more companies ended their partnerships with Karoline. One was a skincare subscription brand. The other a startup that had once featured her in a national ad campaign. Neither issued a statement. They simply removed her photos and moved on. Even the conservative outlet Western Ledger, which had stood by her from the start, quietly ended her weekly column. A source told reporters, she's become more of a liability than an asset. Still, Karoline didn't back down. She began posting a series of short, self-produced videos, fast-cut monologues filmed in her kitchen. Enon, she declared. They want to silence me, but I'm not going anywhere. Comments were split, though fewer than before. Engagement fell, sponsors stayed silent, and the followers who once supported her started disappearing. This wasn't just about losing deals anymore. It was about fading relevance. While Karoline struggled to stay visible, Jasmine found herself under sharper scrutiny. Then an unexpected call changed everything. It was an early Sunday in San Antonio when Brandon's phone rang. The caller ID was unknown, but the voice was calm and deliberate. "My name is Tasha Denton," she said. "I worked on Karoline's last congressional campaign. I have something your team needs to see." Brandon asked for a secure mail and told her to send the files. Minutes later, an email arrived. PDF scans of campaign prep sheets, color-coded notes, pre-written comebacks, and a section labeled "Limestone Disrupt Progressive Women of Color." One line jumped out. "If she mentions race, accuse her of playing the victim. Pivot to personal responsibility. Don't let her lead the tone." Brandon printed the pages, then called Jasmine. "It's not just reckless," he said. "It was rehearsed." Jasmine didn't ask for proof. She trusted him. "Keep building," she replied. The legal team was already solid, but now their foundation was stronger than ever. What once appeared to be a heated debate moment was now proven to be part of a deliberate strategy. Planned rhetoric disguised as spontaneous exchange. Later that night, another message landed in Brandon's inbox. A producer who had worked with Karoline on a political talk show offered to provide a sworn statement confirming she practiced interrupting women of color in mock debates, saying it kept them emotional and off-script. The producer wrote that Karoline often seemed to be testing how far she could go, just because she could. That was the missing piece. Back at Jasmine's office, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Samira looked up from a legal brief as Brandon dropped the files on her desk. "We're done asking the court to assume," he said. "We'll show them." Samira skimmed the first page. "She planned it all," she murmured. Jasmine paused, then said quietly, "Then it's not about me. It's about the playbook." That night, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea. She wasn't thinking about Karoline anymore. She was thinking about the next woman who'd have to face the same subtle disrespect disguised as debate. She thought of how many women had softened their tone just to be heard. This wasn't personal anymore. It was systemic. Meanwhile, Karoline was preparing for another live broadcast. A few smaller outlets still hosted her, places where outrage could still generate clicks. She went live just before midnight, an American flag slightly tilted behind her. Looking into the camera, she said, "You can cancel a person, but you can't cancel the truth." She smirked, the same smirk from the debate, but this time it didn't land. Hours later, her video appeared online alongside the leaked campaign notes. Her face, her words, and the internal strategy laid out side by side. By noon, the clip had over 4 million views. The Guardian headline read, "At best, this wasn't a slip. It was a script." Public opinion shifted overnight. Even those who had stayed neutral couldn't anymore. A college student from Tulsa tweeted, "This wasn't a debate gone wrong. It was humiliation by design." In Sacramento, a group of high school seniors launched a podcast episode titled "How Power Protects Itself," using Karoline's leaked notes as their opening case study. Jasmine didn't share or comment on the post. Still, she read every word of the printed transcript left on her desk. Samira, watching closely, asked quietly, "You want to respond?" Jasmine shook her head. "Not yet." Brandon, leaning by the door, smiled faintly. "She just gave us your entire defense and doesn't even realize it." Karoline realized it later. 2 days after, she called a team meeting. Only 3 people came. A new assistant, a publicist intern, and herself. Sitting at the head of a long table that once fit a larger circle, she said, "They're turning everything against me." Her eyes darted between the few faces left. No one replied. She leaned forward, her tone softer. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." But it already had. The next move wouldn't come from her. It would come from behind closed doors, attached to a number that would stun everyone. When Karoline's name vanished from the speaker lineup of a major conservative event in Kansas City, it was already too late to spin the story. No public statement was made. Organizers simply removed her picture and informed attendees of a schedule change. But reporters knew what that meant and so did Karoline. She called one of her last media contacts, someone she'd worked with years earlier. "Can you help me get ahead of this?" she asked, trying to sound calm. The voice on the line hesitated. "You'd have to say something true first." Then the call ended. Back in Dallas, Jasmine's legal team finalized their brief. 63 pages of verified material. No filler, no exaggeration. Just documentation, emails, planning notes, and sworn statements from 4 former collaborators, all pointing to deliberate provocation and public humiliation. Across the table, Jasmine reviewed the pages with her attorney. Brandon Keyes' Karoline Leavitt thought she could embarrass Jasmine Crockett, live on TV, and walk away untouched. What she didn't expect was a lawsuit supported by solid evidence and a woman who used composure, not chaos, as her weapon. It was a Wednesday, an ordinary workday. Emails were flying, court prep underway, and Jasmine was reviewing deposition notes when her chief of staff, Samira, walked in holding her phone. Her expression wasn't alarmed, but it wasn't casual either. "You might want to see this," she said, handing it over. On screen was a screenshot. Not a press release or legal notice, just a personal message. It was from Karoline, unfiltered. "I know this might not reach you, but I have to try. I'm sorry. I pushed too far. I thought I was being bold, but I was careless. This has cost me more than I imagined. I'm asking you to drop the lawsuit, please." It wasn't dramatic or long, but it struck deeper than anything Karoline had said before. Brandon read it over her shoulder, his eyes narrowing. She's trying to change the narrative. That's not remorse, it's strategy. Jasmine didn't react. She simply returned the phone. "Don't leak it," she said. "Let someone else do that if they want." 2 hours later, it was everywhere. A political journalist anonymously posted the screenshot. Within 20 minutes, podcasts and late-night panels were talking about it. The 88-word message went viral. Some called it human. "She's breaking." One commenter said, "Let her go." Others disagreed. "You don't get to attack someone publicly, then plead privately." News outlets jumped in. CNN aired the power of public silence. MSNBC hosted a panel on accountability. Fox News called it a privacy violation, but didn't deny it was real. It was no longer just a legal matter. It had become a national conversation. In Jasmine's office, notifications poured in. Donations surged. Emails flooded her inbox, some urging mercy, others demanding justice. "People want a statement," Samira said. Jasmine shook her head. "They already have it." "What do you mean?" I didn't respond. No tweets, no interviews, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any reply. Even neutral voices began weighing in. A veteran strategist from Philadelphia tweeted, "This isn't just restraint, it's power." Karoline's camp scrambled. They hadn't planned for the leak. Her PR consultant pushed for a response, but Karoline refused. "They think I'm weak." "I won't give them that," she snapped during a Zoom call, her voice trembling slightly. "Someone leaked that recording too," headlines quoted her. "I'm not begging, I'm setting boundaries." But the public had already seen the message. It was undeniably a plea. That night, Jasmine powered off her phone. She didn't need to track the coverage. She knew exactly how it was unfolding. She reheated leftovers, sat at her kitchen table, and ate in silence.